Meeting with a word of prayer and the pledge. Could I get you a word of prayer?
Sure. Lord, our gracious Father, we just want to thank you for this beautiful day that you've blessed us with. Lord, we always want to thank you for this city that you have made us to be stewards of. We just ask, Lord, that everything that we do, that at the end that you will get the glory that you're so deserving of. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now call this meeting to order. Ms. Hurd, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hawkins?
Here.
Mr. Grimes?
Here.
Mr. Spurgers?
Here.
Ms. Mill?
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Here.
Mr. Hawks?
Here.
Mr. Jones is not here. Ms. Isby?
Here.
All right, tonight's meeting is a special one for Economic Development Project for the City of Conway. We will be asked to consider entering an agreement of understanding with Forelight Ventures for a prospective site in Conway. And I'm going to ask Brad Lacey and Jamie Gates from the Chamber and the CDC if they would speak to this. And before you start, Brad, I know the council's very well what's going on. If you would just kind of explain for the folks that are watching on TV and out in the audience how we get to this point in economic development.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your attention tonight. This has been a very, very long project that we've worked on, and so this is a big step forward for the community. As you know, we work on behalf of the community on economic development projects. This one is no different, although it is much larger in scope, in size, and impact than what we're accustomed to seeing. And so the way I would characterize this is, this is the sort of first formal piece of what will be multiple agreements as we go forward. What you see on this MOU is different maybe than we've seen in the past because it's an agreement with three entities and the company. So the company, the city, Conway Corp., and then the Conway Foundation. And so each of those entities will take this upon consideration, and should all three vote to support it, then we move on to the next round. Your piece of this is critically important, primarily because of the property tax abatement piece of this. As you know, that is a tool that communities have in Arkansas, and we routinely use that here on I can't think of many projects we haven't used that on. Most recently would have been Clayton Home Building Group. So this is no different. It's just that the numbers are bigger, and that property tax abatement is a critical piece to that. Without it, we are not a viable site, and they will move on to another location somewhere else. So, I would start there. As you know, these things are confidential. We're under an NDA. We can't reveal the name of the company, but I can tell you some characteristics about it. It is a U.S.-based Fortune 100 company. It's a company that you would know. It's a name that you would know. This is for a data center campus. It is a potential of 5 different phases upon build out, and then you would be looking at hundreds of full-time, high-quality, permanent jobs directly attributed to that. So again, it's a very, very big project. Timing. So if you approve this, it's really an important step forward in the overall development process for this site. They'll continue to advance work on entitlements and site prep, off-site infrastructure alongside us in Conway Corp. A couple of other things that I think are important is that, should this move forward, it is a massive construction project. These things could last somewhere between 5 and 8 years to fully build out that site. So there's certainly economic impact associated on the construction side, even before the facility opens with full-time folks. The other thing that I think is important to mention about data centers is just the variety of jobs that you have on a campus like this, because they really range from skills that someone with a high school diploma could take all the way up to advanced degrees. So there's a lot of variety in the employment opportunities there. So we're very excited about it. The company is one that we would be happy to have as a corporate partner. We have really enjoyed working with them. They are committed to using local contractors and subcontractors on the construction side. That's an important thing to them. And we have communicated that that's important to us as well, is that as much of that work as possible needs to stay here. And so they're committed to that. Otherwise, maybe questions before we dig into the piece of this or the pieces of this that are relevant to you all?
These are the kinds of meetings we like to have.
I agree. Yeah, yeah, we like to have them too.
Just Brad, real quickly, this MOU has been reviewed by our attorney with the city,
Correct.
and I see Mr. Carroll here. Mr. Carroll, have your people also reviewed this? Everybody's in good shape with it from a legal standpoint right now?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Brad, one question. If everything goes along the timeline that you hope it does, when would we know the name of this company?
Don't know the answer to that question.
Good enough. Good. That's okay. That's okay. I'm in no hurry.
Yeah. Other questions?
Last comment, during the State of the City, we were talking about, it's not uncommon to meet with the CD and the city and chamber, and we talk about multi-million-dollar corporations, and this is the first time we've talked about billions, and it's quite exciting. It's a game changer.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good segue.
Wait,
go.
I have just
Okay, all right.
one point of clarification, because you brought up about the tax abatement. And
Yes.
in the MOU, it says that it lasts for 30 years.
Yes.
At the end of the 30 years, it then reverts to whatever the cities, county, whatever everybody else pays.
So the only way in Arkansas that you can abate property tax is through an industrial revenue bond or an Act 9 bond, as we call them. So there is no other way to abate property tax. So whatever the term of that agreement is how long that abatement period lasts. When that is over, then everything reverts back to
Whatever
the
it
tax
is at
rolls.
that point.
That's right.
Okay.
And then another important part I think about that is there is sometimes confusion, and I understand it, in that the city is not obligated to any of the debt if there is debt associated with this. It's just the mechanism by which the state of Arkansas has created to allow companies to get a property tax abatement.
I got a question. Who came up with and why did it be 30 years?
So I think, Theo, those are pretty standard agreements that we've had in the past for almost any of our property tax abatements. They've generally been somewhere around 25 or 30 years. Gates, is that right?
Yeah, there's been. Coincide with their.
Reason I ask is I'm sure if someone is watching this, they're wondering about us agreeing to this 30-year thing when we won't be around, at least not in office. And they're trying to see what they're going to be left with and why. That's why I asked the question.
Sure. Yeah, those are pretty standard for us. And we have facilities around town that are under a property tax abatement that have enjoyed that benefit for a long time.
That's fine. I was just Try to
Sure.
get a little clarification on.
Absolutely.
Oh, shit.
Other questions before we kind of move through this? All right. And Jamie and I will probably take turns on this. He's worked more on some of the utility-specific things, but I would start, as I said, this is an agreement among 3 entities. So some of the MOU doesn't really apply to you because the Conway Court Board will take it up as well, and then the Foundation Board will take it up as well. But if we go to item 3 on city commitments, we go to that. Well, first, let me do that project overview. So a 300,000 square foot data center building, and ancillary support buildings and infrastructure, and that's what we'll kind of refer to as the projects. They anticipate an investment to construct and equip the project of approximately $1 billion. They're comfortable saying approximately 50 high-quality jobs on that first phase, but you'll see that, should market conditions, the economy, their business continue to go as they see, there'll be additional buildings built, and so all of those numbers multiply. So I would start there, but then if we go to 3, the city commitments, where we talk about this idea that we will agree to a 65% property tax abatement for 30 years, you will see on page 2 that they give you a maximum investment, and these are where the numbers really get pretty incredible for us. $10 billion of real property and $50 billion of personal property investment over the life of that agreement. So you're looking at capital investment that could be up to $60 billion. I can tell you, in the almost 30 years I've been in this business, I have never seen anything close to that. I mean, it was rare to find $1 billion project. And now with the kind of proliferation of data centers, you're seeing some of these bigger numbers. But, I think that's important. Jamie, you want to join me up here to kind of talk through some of the rest of this?
Brad, while Jamie's coming up, just for clarification, mostly for people watching, this is not a data mining center that we hear about
That's
that
right.
people don't like next door.
That's
This is
right.
much different.
Yeah, this is not crypto.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
There's the short version. So again, moving through this. So a lot of this, Brad kind of covered section I there. So going into the next, that over time, because we are contemplating a project, and this is kind of one of the qualitative differences of this project. It just, when we've done Act 9 bond financing for projects in the past, they were construction projects that were kind of small enough to understand, and the slow ones involved ordering a piece of machinery from overseas that would eventually get here and be installed. Well, just given the scope and scale, size of the campus, facility, all this, it's going to take a long time to get this built, and it's going to continue to be reinvested in. So the MOU has in there a provision that as you revisit your planning and permitting fees kind of over the life of this project and over the life of the city, that we're not going to increase those greater than an amount than the CPI. So the cost of doing business with the government is not going to outpace inflation. You'll see terms later in the document talking about discriminatory pricing, where you don't come up with a special fee for buildings larger than 290,000 feet and smaller than 310 who host, data or anything like that. So there are some protections, for the company that are really related to the protections offered every company short of, lawsuits. I mean, you don't do discriminatory pricing anyway, but we're spelling it out here. Moving into the next section on down, talking about the franchise fee. This is the standard franchise fee for water. They will be using water. I think another key call out for anyone researching data center Water is a big issue, but the potable water used here, it's a very small amount. It's the same amount used for any other office building. Cooling water will be contemplated through gray water using treated wastewater. So this is not going to be any more stressful on the city of Conway's drinking water than any other similarly sized office development. But the water that they do use will pay the same franchise fee that exists for everyone else on water. The same will apply for wastewater. And again, in this section, it's contemplating wastewater associated with the kitchen and bathroom facilities on the office building. On the next section, section 5 there, the city and Conway Corporation will not discriminate in utility charges and will work with the company to establish rates for cooling water usage based on a third-party rate study. And you see there which rates will be codified in an ordinance in a timely manner. I think I've emailed you saying that this isn't the beginning of the end. It's not even the end of the beginning. This is a pledge to sign up for a lot of work. And this is going to be one of your action items in the future. This was a recommendation from Brett Carroll and his team early stage, in that since we currently don't sell our gray water, that we would come up with a independent third party to establish the rate. They're going to do that by looking at the real costs associated with the future operations and maintenance of those facilities. They're going to look at the national climate, other rates for those, and then determine what a fair rate is. And at that point, he'll bring that before the council, just like he does for all of our other rates. Y'all will approve that and write an ordinance. But currently, an ordinance does not exist that contemplates selling gray water.
And I would say, just to add to the reason we feel so good about this company, from the very beginning, we know that water is a precious commodity for us. And so from the very beginning, we said the only way that something like this would work here is if you would use gray water for cooling. And they immediately said they were comfortable with that. So we felt very good about that, and then their stewardship of that.
So moving beyond that over to the medium voltage, which this is going to be power supplied by Conway Corporation, and they will pay the standard 2.5 franchise fee that is currently in place. I will just say, I think people intuitively understand that water is precious in the modern economy. What we only recently learned as full-time economic developers is that electrons are also precious. You can't assume that power is available around the country. I think that's one thing that's helping drive this project and others like it to places like Conway. But similar to the gray water, this is not something that's going to exhaust Conway's local power supply or our ability to attract future manufacturers. If that were the case, I think we would have to think about a whole other list of factors related to this project. I'll stop short of saying having your cake and eating it too, but a similar dynamic exists where we're not straining our drinking water and we're not taxing our local power supply. I think Brett would back me up on those points, just because that's another thing that, you know, we also think about managing as we want to continue to grow all of the other parts of our economy moving forward. That said, moving to page 3, the next one, this is another kind of policy innovation and more uncharted territory for us, is we will establish an ordinance agreeable to both the city and to Entergy Arkansas. Entergy will be the party providing our high voltage electricity, and they'll be taking advantage of some of the infrastructure that they have in the region. As you're all familiar, currently, the city of Conway is served by Conway Corporation for power exclusively. We'll be coming up with a joint service agreement. That will be an exercise between Conway Corporation and Entergy. And once that agreement is developed, Brett will be coming to you, and we will need to create an ordinance to talk about what it means to have another party providing power within the city of Conway, but specifically high voltage power. Now, you'll see a distinction in the franchise fee there. You know, I think it is commensurate. It makes sense. That franchise fee is a lower percentage, but we are talking about much more power. Moving down from an earlier version, we broke out and really kind of articulated this. Basically, this language says the next two items really say that this MOU represents the fees and rates that we're going to apply to this project. Even beyond, you know, the protections for discriminatory pricing, this means that we won't come up with something that is non-discriminatory, but new and is applying to this project. So when we talk about the fees associated with this project, it's the fees that are in place today with regard to permitting, the franchise fees that are spelled out here. Not all of the rates and fees are determined yet, but they will live in the ordinances that are developed that are contemplated within this MOU. So it's kind of saying these two, we are going to finish this deal under the climate and terms that are imagined within the MOU. There's not going to be a change or new fees that we haven't thought of yet. And then finally, Shelley, and to Brad's point, it talks about, since we do reference that phrase, you know, through the property tax abatement period for several of these, this just clarifies at the end or conclusion of the property tax abatement period, absent some sort of separate renegotiated agreement between the city and the company, it just, everything goes to default setting. So that would be full taxes. It would be all the standard fees. That's not an exception, but, you know, particularly it would be the taxes would go back.
Yeah, and then if you go to the next section 4, under infrastructure, item D pertains to you, and so that is agreeing to reroute a portion of Lolly Road. This site exists on both sides of Lolly Road. They obviously don't want a city street running through the middle of what will be a campus. And so there is a small portion of Lolly Road that needs to be rerouted, and this would be the responsibility of the city.
And I did bring Jacob and Kurt in. We visited about this. I thought it would be a big issue due to the soil down there, and Jacob said, no, actually, that will be one of the easier roads that we've built.
And I think it would take one of the big
Take the big curve out of it.
turns out of there too.
Absolutely.
So that road will follow a route that we identified several years ago. And in fact, there's already some water infrastructure, and it doesn't make sense where it's running through the middle of the field right now, but for the fact that we put it there in advance of the road being moved to that location. And we'll coordinate the timing of that construction. We want to do it at a time that it's makes sense for the private side construction, also makes sense for the public side construction, and that it'll mitigate, you know, any increased damage to the new road or road bed. I could definitely imagine a scenario where we build the road to a standard that gets the project done, and then after all the heavy work and heavy construction's done, we come in and we finish the roadway. And then at some point, you know, we'll be swapping that right of way for the new roadway for the old roadway. But that's going to be a function of site preparation. That's not a project we need to get out and do in any kind of short order. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Questions?
Yeah, I was running a tad bit late, and I'm sure y'all have already spoke on this about
Mr. Jones, will you pull your mic down for the people watching online? we've got a bunch of people watching.
Hear what I said? Okay, could you tell me about that?
Yeah, we're not exactly sure on the timeline on when they get started. This is just kind of the first step in a number of steps before they would move forward to close on the property. They still have work they need to do on a long-term power agreement and some other things that are outside of our control or your control. But this is a critical first step that allows us to keep moving forward.
And I think we've got multiple paths kind of all laying next to each other. Brett and his team are already working on the design of some of the cooling infrastructure. There's already site work taking place, just site evaluation to really kind of prepare the construction plans. Your action items are going to be waiting on a utility rate study, the design of the gray water infrastructure, as well as that rate study, which comes after we know what the costs to build it are. And so this is and none of those things are simple or short processes. So we're certainly going to be spending the rest of 2025 sharpening pencils, getting smarter, learning more about what's in front of us.
And all those ordinances are going to come back here.
That's right.
So we'll have more input.
That's
and
right.
yeah.
So what we're really looking at here is an agreement to say that we agree to continue dating, right? Like,
Well, yes, under these terms. I think
Right.
we're generally accepting that you are going to abate the property
Sure.
tax at a 65% rate. Again, if that were a no, we would need to know that tonight, and then they would need to move on somewhere else. So, yes, there will be an industrial revenue bond coming to you at some point, but we need to be certain that we want to do this tonight.
We're dating, but this is the Marion type.
This isn't dating, this is courting.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. We're
We didn't just
exclusive
make
now.
this one out. So
Yeah, understood, understood.
You know, another point that I don't know that we made that I think is really important, and again, I think it speaks to who the company is and what they're, willing to do, is that, just like with the gray water system, they're paying to design that. They will pay to build that. So that will not come on the backs of ratepayers in the city. So they are investing a lot of money, even on infrastructure.
I'm sure that gray water has been used in some shape, form, or fashion for this type of a situation before, but this is probably a first in Arkansas, isn't it? Or is it not?
As far as I know it's been evaluated before, maybe in a little while for a similar situation.
The airport.
That should come up.
Yeah,
to it.
Mr. Carroll, will you come talk in the
Come
mic?
on up, because people on.
Yeah, we got a bunch
online
online.
Can't hear you.
To my knowledge, it's not been done in our state before. I know it's been evaluated and studied in another application, but to my knowledge, it's not been done successfully at this point. But it is certainly prevalent, and these type of solutions are apparent in other parts of the country.
Will you, Mr. Gates, Mr. Lacy, someone, will you please speak a little bit to Conway Foundation? That looks good, but what is that? Who's that governed by? Can you help us understand more about that?
Sure. So Conway Foundation was established in 2009. It received its 501c3 status in 2013. It's governed by a board. Lori Melton is the newly elected chair. I think she's here somewhere in the back. Board members would be Bill Hageman, Eric Hutchinson, Leanne Dietz, Lane Housley, Denise Perry, Kate McConnell, Gilberto Garcia. And it's created really to be a community type foundation to accept, gifts, for instance, whether it be land or money to then reinvest into the community. And I think the important thing about this is these regional investments they make are made to then be immediately reinvested back into the community in line with their corporate values and the values of the community. So
Sure. So I'm hearing that that allows them a vehicle to make a, tax deductible contribution in an investment in the community, and that when that comes into the Conway Foundation, that from there, it's governed by not us, not you, but by an
right.
independent board made up of local business owners.
That's
Is that
right.
accurate?
That's right. And then there is a reporting structure back to the company about where those dollars were
Okay.
invested.
Can you, not necessarily asking for specifics, can you give us any hint to like what kind of thing that could look like in the community eventually?
Well, I mean, if you look at the MOU, it spells out that it needs to align with the core values of the company, but also the community strategic plans, including your citizen survey. So things that are identified in your citizen survey or Conway 2035 or
Sure.
Conway 2025 or any subsequent similar community-wide visioning effort. And then it also contemplates what would happen if something happened to that foundation.
Okay.
Where would that regional investment go?
So in plain speak, it allows them to basically make a donation there that Conway Foundation is then obligated to reinvest according to what the citizens have said they want to see happen
That's
through
correct.
Conway 2035 in the survey. Okay.
Right.
And just a quick point of clarification, because I work for the Arkansas Community Foundation and the local Faulkner County affiliate, which is not the same thing.
That's right.
So just make sure everybody knows that.
That's right.
And I believe there was some question about the governance of the foundation and that Mrs. Grimes is not on the board. She's the registered agent as the CFO for the chamber, correct?
That's correct.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you both for those clarifications. Yeah. Council, any more questions of these two gentlemen? If you don't have any, I'll open it up to public comment.
I mean, a small thank you for your work. How exciting. Thank you, guys. I know it's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay, at this time, we'll open it up to public comment. If anyone has any questions or like to make a comment, if you would approach the podium and state your name and address for the record, please. Okay, seeing no one, we will bring this back to the council. I would like to reiterate what you said. Thank you to the Conway Corporation, Brad, Jamie, and the CDC and the chamber. We've had, this has been fun. It's been a lot more zeros than I'm used to seeing. And when the first time I saw them, I thought, well, this can't be right. So thank you all for the work you've done. Chamber, council, thank you for agreeing to come in a week early to get this up and started. So at that time, we will take a motion to enter into this MOU. Or
Second?
we have a motion and a second to enter in this MOU with this how did I say that? Yeah, whatever.
Forge Life.
Forge Light. I knew I got it wrong first time. With Forge Light. Any further discussion? Ms. Hurd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Passes 8-0. All right, the ball's been kicked, guys. Get after it. Council, I don't have anything else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.